All right, so for those of you still here, we're going to go into the Fallout show. So we've both watched season 1 to completion. It's only 8 episodes on Amazon Prime. About an hour each, so about 8 hours total of television. Yeah, Montrell, let's just start. Like, what are your overall feelings on it? How'd you like? Did you like the show? Did you not like the show?
I fully went into it not knowing what to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what they were going to do with the lore. I didn't know what they were going to do with anything. And I don't know, man. I think probably one of the best video game shows I've ever watched. It's over The Last of Us for me, in my opinion.
It's up there with Arcane.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, man. From the lore, from the actors and actresses, the performances of everybody, how they kept the spirit of the game within the show. Every time they did like slow motion shots, I just thought nothing but Vats. I'm like, this is nothing but Vats right here. Like this, and all the cameos, and not even the cameos, but all the Easter eggs they put in there and everything of that nature, and just tying everything together, man. Like they really, whoever was like the spearhead of this project, they made everybody either play the games or watch someone play the games. Because no expense was spared.
No, they played the games. It was Jonathan Nolan is the showrunner.
Okay.
Which is I think Christopher Nolan's son, I want to say. So certainly got pedigree there, but yeah, he's a huge Fallout fan. Like, games.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. I think it's. I don't know, man. I was blown away. I watched the first episode. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then the second episode happened, and I was like, I am fully invested. Like, and it's the show's so good that even my wife was watching it. She was like, "Yo, this is actually a good show." Like, I was like, "Yeah, I know, right?" And then she even, after we watched the show to its completion, she even allowed me like 30 minutes to fanboy to her. She's like, "All right, I know you want a fanboy, go."
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, so I went into the show expecting not to like it because I don't, like, I've talked about on the show. I think we talked last week. Like, I don't love Bethesda's version of Fallout, and I figured the show would be that, right?
Yep.
And I think to a large degree it was. However, what I will say is, as a video game television show, this show felt like a game. Like, the way it's structured. And the way the kind of the plot kind of moves and everything is like, it feels like a Fallout game, you know, like where Lucy comes out of her vault and she's kind of learning about the world and she has things going on and she gets completely sidetracked by, like, there's like a joke about that with the ghoul where he's like, oh, you know, getting distracted by side shit or whatever. You know, and it's like, that is kind of exactly what happens in this show and that is a strength and also a weakness of the show. I do think in the middle, the show's meanders a lot.
Yeah, it does.
There's a lot of shit going on that's just not super important to the core plot. Specifically the whole like kind of divergence to Vault 4 that happens, which is a really interesting section of the show, but it's like not directly super important to what the main overarching plot is of the show. So it's kind of interesting in that regard. I think that part of it is, depending on who you are, may turn you off from the show, those kind of moments where it kind of loses focus a little bit. But I think for us, you know, as you know, people who play video games, like, it's perfectly fine. They're fleshing the world out, which I think is really cool in a Fallout show. And I think they structured it in such a way where it's got a really good hook for people who don't know what Fallout is, and are coming in fresh for the first time. Like, this is their first experience with Fallout, but it's also really awesome for people who've played the games and understand the games. There's a lot of references to the games, even for somebody like me who's only really played a couple of them somewhat deeply. There's things I instantly noticed, like Shady Sands is literally one of the towns from the first game, you know, which was kind of fucking crazy. And we can get into the lore stuff and everything and the implications and some of the things they confirmed and whatnot, and kind of where they're going with the show, especially too, which is going to be interesting. But I think the characters are really strong. Particularly Lucy and the Ghoul are like excellent.
Yeah, man.
Both actors. Bro, like, oh my god, Walton Goggins, I think is his name, playing the ghoul is fucking amazing
He
in the
never played
show.
the games, by the way. He's like, I never
Dude,
played the games.
oh my god, he's perfect. Like he was so good, and there is some incredible action sequences with him. Sort of specific gunfights he gets into that are just so fucking good. Like I love the episode 2 fight in Philly that happens, and then the one in the final episode where he like fucks up the Brotherhood of Steel
Yeah,
like
man, that was
battalion,
really
dude,
good.
is
Yeah.
so good. Oh my god, like such a fucking badass, bro. Like so there's some really cool stuff there. And then just Lucy in general, as much as I love the ghoul, she's kind of the highlight. Like this actress Ella Purnell was awesome. Like she just was like so good in the role.
You can actually physically see her character development in the game, and that's what's the game
Yeah.
in the movie, or the show rather. It was one episode. I think it was when they left Vault 4. I was like, wow, she's a completely different person now. Like she understands what the world is now. Like
She's the one who's like, yeah, I mean, she's the one who's like killing people and shit. You know, it's at a
yeah.
certain point, you know, she gets transformed by the wasteland. It's like it is what it is. One note about her too is she actually plays Jinx in Arcane.
Oh,
So
really? I didn't know that.
she has some background with video game stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Um, for me, I think the biggest strong point was I actually think so. I think they kept the humor of Fallout 3 or Fallout Bethesda's Fallout. But
Yeah.
they actually took the writing and lore building of Fallout, all the other Fallouts, the older
Yeah.
Fallouts, the New Vegas, Fallout 1 and
Mhm.
2, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I explained to my wife too. I'm like how you said you're playing a game. I'm like, that's kind of how the game is. Like you have certain choices. Lucy made certain choices where it could have drastically altered the way the story worked. And I'm like,
Totally.
that's
Yeah. You
how
can
the
see
game
those
is too.
divergent points, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, she's like, so is the game humorous and bloody and gory like this? I'm like, yeah, actually it is. Even in the older games, it's bloody and gory, but they were like 2D sprites, so they couldn't really portray it the way they wanted to, right? But in like Fallout 3 and New Vegas, it's just insanely like over the top, like gory and shit like that. And I'm like, that's just the way the world is. And and I'm like a big gore person, but it's like I just understand what Fallout is, and it does it in a way where it's not like cringy to me. Like I don't know what horror movies do it and stuff like that. It's kind of cringy and I don't like it.
Hmm.
But the way Fallout does it is just really cool. Um, and yeah, the comedic nature of the show, also just keeping that vibe, the 1950 vibe, in the 2000s and stuff like that. Like I really love that. A lot of people were asking questions about that. Like a lot of people, my friends who didn't watch the show, like why is it still in the 1950s? And I'm like, well, that's the vibe that they went with,
Well, the
even though it's
Cold
like
War never ended in this
yeah,
universe.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Right.
So and they never found like they never and they were talking about the technology and stuff. I'm like, well, the transistor was never invented in this world. So electronics never got smaller. It just got bigger. It is everything in the
Yeah.
world just got bigger and they harnessed nuclear energy instead of other forms of energy and stuff like that.
Right.
So everything just was just bigger and bulkier and everything of that nature. On the American side, there is like bits of lore that says like maybe the Chinese and the Eastern continents discovered ways to be more towards modern, like our version of modern. Um,
Yeah.
because you can see it in their weapons and even in their Chinese power armor, it's way smaller than like our power armor in the lore or whatever. So it's kind of weird or kind of funny. But I want to skip ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, hold on. I should have said this to start. But because we've already kind of gotten into
Oh yeah,
spoilers a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit, but
yeah,
like this is a full spoiler conversation, guys. There's not going to be any like not spoilers discussion here. So if you're still here and you haven't watched the show and you care about watching the show, like get out now. Okay,
yeah.
this is your warning. So
We'll give you like 30
yeah,
seconds. So
yeah.
I'll pause for
And
like
same with the
30 seconds.
games too. If you haven't played the games, like there's going to be spoilers for the games in here because this interconnects with the games significantly. So yeah,
Yeah.
you've been warned. Go ahead, Macho.
So yeah, I actually love how at the end of the series they tie it into Shady Sands
Yeah.
and
Oh my
they
god.
actually tie it into when he said war never changes, I was like, oh my fucking god. I was like, this is it. That's why I started typing y'all. Like I was going crazy or whatever.
Well, I
But
love him saying too that like he point because this has always been the thing with Fallout is that it's not only that war never changes, it's the idea of there's somebody behind the scenes pulling the strings.
yes,
It's not this isn't just two nations going at each other. There are people manipulating events to make these wars happen, you know.
yeah,
And that's still true in the wasteland, you know.
yep,
Um
yep. I like how they just come out and say it. Well, they didn't actually say it. It's still. This is where like reading comprehension and comprehension in general comes into place. Like I like when media doesn't really just tell you, because comprehension is about filling in the gaps, right?
yeah.
And we saw Mr. House or Robco, the vendor, vendor of Robco, who's in New Vegas. We saw him at the beginning, and I mean, Voltec pretty much confirmed like if this war ends, we're gonna lose all our shares. Like all of our money is gonna go into.
Wait a second. Okay. So all right. So you're going to be educating me a lot here, and what you just said is so I know who Mr. House is in Fallout New Vegas. Like he's I don't he's like a computer, right?
Yeah. But he was that guy in front of the Robco thing.
Correct. Right.
He's
in the past. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this is where things get super weird for me because I never got deep enough into the games to get into this lore to know that Vault Tech was still manipulating things in like the current timeline.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a reveal for me. Which was really interesting to learn. It makes me a lot more interested about Fallout, to be frank. Because it's just weird. These guys are like trying to hold on to power, you know?
Yeah, so what's super interesting is they kept some lore from the DLCs in New Vegas. There's a DLC for New Vegas. I can't remember the fucking name of it. I gotta go back and look at it. But they take you to this not alternate world, but it's another land that they take you to. It's kind of like a base. And in that base, you talk to people from the old world, but the people in the old world are in these brain jars.
Yeah, like what's his name? The I forget fucking the dude that Norm runs into. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm so glad that they made that, because even in that they kind of implied like we're making we had our experiments and stuff like that and everything of that nature, because that place you're in, like it's like a experimental place that you're in, and they're doing experiments on people and everything of that nature. And it's implied there too that this is kind of funded by Vault-Tec and everything of that nature. So I just love that they kind of tie that into it, like not even with the character, I mean just with the character and how he looked. I was just like, oh my god, like that's the same guy, or not the same guy, but the same kind of type of technology. And even the crypto or the cryo stuff that you go into cryo sleeping and Fallout 4, they kept that technology in the show. So like that's canon. I mean, it's been canon, but like they're using the same technology that we are familiar with. But it was always implied that Vault-Tec is doing these experiments. We never knew why they were doing the experiments, though. All we knew was the
vaults are experiments.
Exactly. Right. Each vault had an experiment, and there may have been like one or two vaults that are like simply for living, but like every other vault has some type of experiment going with it or whatever.
Which think sounds like 33 is one of those ones that was just for living.
Yeah. I think their experiment with Vault 33 is like how would they deal with overpopulation or whatever, but I'm not too sure yet.
Or maybe 32 was that.
Maybe 32 was that.
Which is why it failed,
which is weird too, right? Because I thought, I was like, she was like, what's so weird about these vaults? I'm like, they never really connect vaults. Like this is the first time I've heard of vaults being connected with each other. There's never
but it's because that's like the main vault.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought that was like really fucking cool that they did that. That they implied that Vault-Tec blew up or may have
dropped the
bombs.
That's insane. It makes so much sense though. It almost hurts my brain how much sense it makes. Like
this has been the theory since Fallout. They've been cooking this shit since Fallout 3.
Yeah.
So if you go into Fallout 3, the very first fucking town you go into is called Megaton, and there's a bomb that did not go off.
Right.
And on the bomb, usually if you know like military stuff, you follow military shit. Missiles have their they usually have their country's logo on them, so you can know where the country came from or what country this missile came from, or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This had the Voltec logo on it, and people were like, "Huh? Why does this have the Voltec logo on it?"
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, and I
wow.
believe in other games, if you find the bombs, they have the countries where they came from. But we also know, like, we don't know who launched the first bomb, so it didn't really make any sense. But this one was the only bomb that we had concrete proof that Voltec had
Had
something to do.
nukes.
Yeah, had something to do with it. And I just thought that was like really cool. So people are like, "Oh, well, that theory's dead because the actual creator of Fallout, he doesn't own the Fallout IP anymore. Anybody, so take this with a grain of salt. He came out in like 2015 or 2017 or something like that and said like, "Oh, well, it was actually China that launched the missiles first. That's where we're gonna go with it." Which I thought was like going to be. I'm so glad. I'm kind of glad it took the IP away from him because I'm like that would have been insanely boring if they did that, right? If they're like, "Oh, well, China found out that we were doing human experiments with the FEV stuff with the super mutants and everything of that nature, and they launched the bombs because of that or something like that, something of that nature, or the reason why he said China did it or whatever." And I'm like, that would have been so fucking incredibly boring because all throughout the lore, it's just spread out like maybe Voltec did it, maybe Voltec didn't do it. Who knows? Maybe somebody from the Enclave did it or whatever the fucking
Well, I
case may
think
be.
it's almost endlessly more interesting that Vault-Tec did it than a specific country because
Yeah,
if a country does it, it kind of just becomes a fulfillment of the idea of mutual fucking what's the fucking term I'm trying to think of mutually assured destruction.
yeah,
It's just a fulfillment of that idea, whereas this is much more of it has the appearance of mutually assured destruction, but it's not. Somebody was manipulating things behind the scenes to take power, and it becomes much more of a kind of um, more of a philosophical discussion of how far a capitalist society will go
which was
to
always Fallout's
maintain power, right?
which is
Like,
always Fallout's inception from the first game. I can't
yeah,
understand how people don't understand that from the first game.
yeah,
If you never played the first game, or I even feel like Fallout 3 takes it that far. I feel like even Fallout 4
yeah,
tries to take it that far. But like,
yeah.
yeah, and I've seen discussions on Fallout like, "Oh, there's some more woke liberal agenda stuff. Oh, the commies, huh? Or against capitalism." It's like, oh my god, like, did y'all play the games? Y'all didn't play the fucking games, man.
Yeah. Well,
Also,
because the show makes it very clear multiple times to say that Vault-Tec owns half of everything,
yep,
to make it very clear that they had power throughout the entire world. It's like this was a huge conglomerate corporation that had a ton of power. So it's just the man though. I don't know. Sorry,
yeah.
I cut you off.
No,
Yeah.
it's all good. It's even in the show, right? It was one part where I think they were in the bar and they were talking about on the TV set. You can hear. I think they said Voltec stocks are dropping because the United States is landing. We're about to land on the shores of China, and we're about to take Beijing. Like it's the war's about to be over,
Yeah.
And Voltec stocks are dropping because they're selling all these vaults, and they're preparing for this huge war or these bombs dropping, and now they're not going to drop. These vaults are going to
Right.
be
They
empty.
created a need.
Yep.
Or they created a product where there was a need, but then the need of that product goes away when the war ends. So what do? They bomb everybody so that those things are required, basically, because they were going to lose control if that happened, right?
Yep.
Like, so they basically just went all the way with it, and man, it's such a crazy plot point. The fact that that's now confirmed, is kind of nuts because it changes the fabric of what Fallout is going forward. I think um, any game taking place in this universe now has to kind of take place with that in account. Take that into account. When you're building your storyline. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily matter in places that vault tech, they're aren't vaults, and B, maybe they're not directly in control because a lot of the vaults are destroyed. Like there's nobody in
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
they're ruins. So there's plenty of places you can go. Also, areas where the bombs didn't really directly drop. I think going forward are actually going to be really interesting settings to see, like the middle of the United States. Obviously there were vaults there, but the bombs hit the major population centers, and I mean, obviously the U.S. is fucking huge, so
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't have enough bombs to bomb every single square inch of the entire planet, so
Yeah.
um, so,
Exactly.
so that's going to be, I think, going forward. Those are kind of more interesting settings, I guess I would like to see, but just in terms of the ramifications of that, man, it's I don't know.
Yeah. I think
I don't
it's
know. I'm
really
still
cool.
wrapping my head around it. Like I haven't fully like come to terms with what it means in this universe. It's like it's crazy.
I think
Man.
a lot of people can't wrap their, and that's why they're so upset about it. I think I actually do like the mysteriousness of who dropped the first bombs. I actually kind of wish
Not
they,
knowing.
yeah. I'm still kind of thinking it's implied, even though it's like they didn't basically come out and say they did it. But it's still implied. So
I mean, they're literally having a board meeting discussing dropping the bombs.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so I mean, I don't. They did it.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty
Also,
clear.
this is like it's canon now in New Vegas because you can have tons of different options in New Vegas. That's why I love New Vegas, right? Um, but it's actually kind of canon now that the NCR just won, because they obviously they were able to make Shady Sands and everything of that nature, and they were rebuilding and everything. Um, and like New Vegas is just destroyed. So actually, you know what? They actually kind of left that open, right? Because it could have been like the NCR won, but then Caesar's Legion and New Vegas came
Well,
and destroyed New Vegas, or whatever the case may be.
yeah. Well, Todd has been talking about the show, obviously, in interviews and stuff, and he said that basically the event in the show of Shady Sam's being bombed happened like literally directly after New Vegas ends. So,
Okay, okay,
um, within, I would imagine, a few months to maybe even a year at most. A time frame is kind of the way he was talking about it. So, and the show takes place 15 years after New Vegas.
yep.
So that bomb dropped. Obviously, we know with Maximus, like he was a kid when that happened, and he survived. After the bomb was actually dropped. And so yeah, that's like the timeline with the show. So yeah, it happened right after New Vegas. I think that's where people are having an issue with it, is that it feels like they are invalidating what happened in the game New Vegas, because since whatever outcome happens, Shady Sands gets bombed. And regardless of who wins, it kind of like whatever choices you were making, it doesn't really matter because that faction is just like completely gone after that event. But I don't necessarily like look at it that way, I
Yeah, I don't
guess.
look at it that way either. I think
Yeah.
that's I don't know. Um, it's like whatever happens, like because even if the NCR loses, right, they can still make Shady Sands and everything of that nature. I don't know. It's a really good plot point in my opinion. Um, I forgot where Fallout. I want to know if they're gonna go to the East Coast. I really want to see what the East Coast looks like. I want to see where DC, because the water chip is out there in DC now. Like everyone has water. If you played Fallout 3, sorry y'all if I was
Mhm.
but everyone has water now, like fresh water. And then I haven't beat Fallout 4 yet, but I know the plot points of Fallout 4 as well, and everything of that nature. So it's like I really want to know what DC and the East Coast is going to look like. I know in the Fallout, the Brotherhood of Steel, you do go to Chicago in that game, but that game's not canon. So it's like I want to know what
Yeah,
like
I don't think that one is. Yeah, that's the thing for me is Fallout's always taking place on the coast. That's why I kind of want to see what the middle of the country looks like
yeah
Dallas or Chicago, or St. Louis or something. Would be an interesting place, I think, for the next game to take place in. But yeah. So because yeah, Fallout 3, I believe, takes place in 2277, I think.
hmm
And then New Vegas is 2281. And then I think Fallout 4 is 2287, I want to say. Somewhere there. And then the show is 2296.
okay,
So,
yeah, 2287 for Fallout 4. So
yeah.
yeah, like I mean, they've already like Washington DC has already been living with water for a while at this point. Like I
20
really
years.
went, yeah. Actually, and another thing I love about the show is I absolutely love what they did with the Brotherhood of Steel. I love that they went with the old version of Brotherhood of Steel and not Bethesda's version of the Brotherhood of Steel. I absolutely fucking love it. Like in Bethesda's version, the Brotherhood of Steel is like this force of good, and we want to save the wasteland. And it's like, no, we actually hate everybody in the wasteland. We just want to preserve the technology, and that's all the fuck we want to do. We want to
Well,
control that.
because isn't this like a theory? Is that there was like a split in that faction, in like the East Coast version of the Brotherhood of
Yes,
Steel is
yeah,
different from the West Coast, and this
yes.
is kind of in line with that.
Which I was reminded when I ran into the Brotherhood of Steel. I'm playing the game right now. You run into the Brotherhood of Steel Outcast, and the Outcast are the ones who actually wanted to be in line with the old ways of the Brotherhood of
Yeah,
Steel.
right.
And then, like you said, the new version, the new Brotherhood of Steel, that's what they are currently now on the East Coast.
Which they seem to be a shadow of themselves in the show. Which they even acknowledge the main priest guy. I forget his name.
Yeah,
He literally says that at some point. That like,
well, that's another thing too, which is another interesting point. He makes that point because they save Maximus, right?
yeah,
In the Brotherhood, at least the original iterations of the Brotherhood, they don't take any outsiders. Everything is like within, like they're a clan, you know. So they don't take any
I mean,
outsiders or anything
does that
like
mean
that.
they have like women though? Because they don't really have women in the show
They do
version of
have
things.
women in the games. They
Okay,
have women. I don't know.
okay,
That was a weird thing they did in the show. I don't know why they didn't have so many. Uh, they didn't show women, that which is weird. But in the show they have
could be a
women.
future plot point though.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but in the video games, and the lore, women can be knights, men can be knights. The only thing they don't allow are abominations, which are like ghouls and any sort of like if you're kind of mutated or anything like that. They don't want any of that. They want purity. Um, so uh, I don't know. I think it's cool that they went with that. But also, even in New Vegas, they were on their last legs. Like when they fought the NCR for Helios, which I think they referenced in this show actually as well. They lost a lot of men fighting the NCR, and they lost that battle ultimately.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you can actually change the outcome. You can retake Helios with them, or you can just fight with the NCR and kill them outright and like wipe them out of the map in New Vegas, which is really cool, in my opinion. But yeah, like I also do like the faction within the factions and all the other stuff like that. It was very like Fallout, like it was very like everyone has a plot point to go on and everything of that nature. Um, so I don't know. I just think the TV show um was really fucking good. Like I hope the showrunner continues to be the showrunner for the next couple of seasons. I'm pretty sure it's gonna get like 4 or 5 seasons. Um I don't want it to go past 4 seasons. In my opinion, I think like 3 to 4 seasons would be okay with the show. But yeah,
Well, yeah, because I mean, this is an issue the show's going to have though. Is the longer it goes, how much can they really show? You know,
yeah,
without interfering too much with the games. I mean, they are safe in terms of a timeline thing. Like, obviously, they're not going to run into the characters necessarily from some of the games. I mean, I guess they would actually if they went to like they ended up going to the East Coast though, because I mean, 20 years is enough time where some of these characters are still alive, right?
yeah,
So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. Because yeah, going to New Vegas, 15 years after the game happened, like I don't know what happens to your character at the end of the game necessarily. Obviously, I know that game has multiple different endings too, but like the player character from that game could be there, right? Like I would think, and obviously like Mr. House and some of these other characters from that game, depending on what happened, what direction they decide to go, like Caesar or actually they call him Kaiser, don't they?
yeah. They call
I
him
think
Kaiser,
because
which
they
my
don't know how
wife
to say it.
informed me is the correct
Yeah.
way to pronounce it. Actually, Caesar is the
Yeah,
English translation.
whatever. Caesar sounds better. Actually, they both sound cool in their own way, but so that's very interesting. I don't know. Going to New Vegas at the second season is super risky. Actually, I
It
think,
is. It is very. It is very.
especially with a game that has multiple endings and there's no canon for it,
Yeah.
necessarily.
I'm wondering what they're gonna do with that.
I mean, Todd talked about that, dude. He said that it's gonna be a challenge to do this without fucking up what people, I don't know, what people's like their own timeline of what happened in their game. You know,
I just want a New Vegas too. Like I really just want another new game set in New Vegas or something like that. I just really want another Fallout game. I don't want 76 anymore. I heard they fixed 76 a lot, so I might go back and play it because I have it. I bought it when it first came out, but uh, I really do want another Fallout game. But like you said, I want a Fallout game in like Wyoming, Chicago, Michigan, Dallas, Oklahoma, something like that, right? Like I really want, like you said, in the middle of the country, because I really want to see what the middle of the fucking country looks like at this point.
Yeah, which we may get there in the show. Actually,
yeah, that's true.
That would be cool to explore some of that because, yeah. Okay, so do you want to get into specifics on the show's like kind of events though, the different episodes? We don't have to go episode by episode necessarily, but I did really like the way the show opened, literally showing the bombs drop in 2077. Because I think you see that in Fallout 4 a little bit at the beginning of the game, but you don't really you're not like there because your character goes into cryo sleep, right, for 200 years. So I did kind of like that they opened like that. And I thought that was a really, God, it was such a fucking horrifying image to watch. Because I gotta be honest, the CG there like was really impressive.
Yeah, it was. It was
like
kind of scary.
it looked, dude, it was scary as fuck. It looked super realistic, like in slow mo, like that too, with the bombs kind of cascading out, the explosion cascading out, and then you see the all the windows and all the buildings kind of blow out, and then you start seeing some of the buildings collapsing, and shit. Dude, it was actually a really like terrifying image, to be honest with you. I'm glad we don't live in a universe where this is likely to happen.
I don't know, man.
I mean, you're not wrong, but to this degree, I guess, like, where it would be like the entire planet at the same time,
Yeah.
Because I think that's one thing from our earlier discussion about Vault Tech dropping the bombs is I do wonder, like, was it just Vault Tech? Because like maybe they started it and then obviously everyone else just started shooting their bombs as a response.
That's why I think it is. I don't think so. I don't think Vault Tech did all the bombs. I think they launched one bomb over, and from what I think, the Chinese did fire first. Technically, they were the first country to fire, but they're only responding to what they thought was coming from like a
US attack.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So yeah, that was a great opening, I thought. Definitely set the tone for the show immediately that this is not a fun universe. This is pretty horrifying, like harrowing universe to live in. But yeah, I mean, what did you think of the kind of the introduction to the vault and the kind of the raiders coming in early on? Because I thought it was really interesting later on that woman, Steph, I think the blonde woman, she is one of the Vault 31 people, and it's very interesting that she's like one of the militant ones early on. I feel like she has her own ulterior motives that aren't like, obviously we haven't fully explored yet.
Yeah, I actually like that plot point, which is really cool. We can focus on, like, now that we got the big stuff out the way, right? Which they show at the end of the show, we can still focus on the individual stories, which I think is a good choice of why they did that, because they really want to focus on the individual stories now. And I really do want to know what happened, like with those 3 vaults. Like, why is it like that? I thought it was really cool. I picked up on it too when they first introduced Lucy to get married, and I'm like, this is kind of fucking weird. Like, these people are really not vault looking people or whatever.
Right. It seemed kind of obvious that the shoe was about to drop. Yeah.
Yep.
Because they were eating like ravenously. They had no manners. They didn't look clean.
Yeah. So I thought it was pretty cool to introduce that and give them a reason why. Also, I think it was a really good tie-in to cameo to Fallout 3, because obviously your father doesn't go out in the same way, but he does leave the vault, and that's your main character's reason for leaving the vault, to go find your father, which is like Lucy's main motivation to leave the vault to go find her father as well.
Yeah. Yep. And then I think we get our introduction to Maximus here too, with the Brotherhood of Steel. So we haven't really talked about him very much. How did you feel about his whole arc in the show?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't like it.
Me either. I don't
I
like
didn't
this
like it.
character. I really dislike this character. I
Um,
actually like him more by the end of the show.
yeah, by
But
the
I
end of the
think,
show, he does redeem himself, but he has some very dumb character arcs, in my
well,
opinion.
he ends in a very interesting place too. But I think largely throughout the season, most of the things that happen to him are happenstance, and he has no like guiding goal or anything like that. Like he's
Yeah,
not doing anything specifically to do it. He's like just happens to be in the right place at the right time.
yeah.
I don't feel like he has a lot of agency in his own story either. He just happens, like things just happen to him, you know, and he kind of deals with the lack of a better term fallout of that. You know, and he certainly makes decisions at certain points, but it just doesn't feel like he doesn't seem like a very smart character either. um, I don't know. It's like
I think he's meant to represent what happens if you make bad choices in the game.
yeah, kind of. Yeah.
um, and I think he's meant to not be liked.
Yeah.
But even some things were like not even, they weren't spelled out, and they didn't spell it out into the end, right? And there was like one line. Remember his friend, the blade in the boot?
Yeah.
It was always I thought like one of the other kids did it, right? That were
Right.
like one of the other cadets.
Me too.
Until we find out like later that his friend, he actually did, they actually did it themselves. Like they put it in their boot and
Yeah.
cut it themselves because they were afraid or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I get that in the military, in the real world, military people do harm themselves and they have to go out when they figure they have to go out for deployment. But it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, kind of make it more. Because if you went to the bathroom or if you went to go get something to eat, you would have missed that line like that, you know, and you would
Yeah.
have been like stuck. Like, what happened? Like, we never.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a major, not a major plot point. It was a major plot point for the character that was like kind of done badly, in my opinion. I really didn't like that part of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 No, I didn't either. I don't really like his arc. I mean, he just ends up lying to everybody he runs into for the most
Yeah.
part. And then he just falls into this weird, like, love kind of relationship, or I don't know if I call it relationship, but like a little bit of a, you know, thing with Lucy later in the season. And I don't know how earned that really is for him.
It
Like,
doesn't really feel too earned, in my
yeah.
opinion.
He doesn't do a whole lot for her. I don't know. He just seems like kind of a bumble, because, you know, even when he goes to like save her or whatever, when she's getting brought to like what appears to be an execution, and he like comes out with the power armor and he's just fucking everything up, and it's like it's just a funny moment because like they're not actually gonna kill her, and she's like no, stop, and he's just like oh sorry, you know. It's like
Yeah.
he's just like, I don't know, he just doesn't seem like the most intelligent character, which is, I mean, it's okay, it's fine. But it feels like it does feel like he feels like a plot device almost to like show a different version of what can happen in the wasteland to people depending
Yeah.
on, you know, the choices they make, like you said. Yeah, so I don't know, he's kind of weird. I didn't really love a lot of the scenes he was in, even when like later on in the season when he's talking to the main priest of the Brotherhood, and the dude's like, you know, basically making a deal with him, like, hey, you know, get this thing for me, and we're gonna create a new Brotherhood of Steel with you and me on top, basically. And he goes to the NCR camp with no real intention to get that thing, and then he just ends up in a position where it looks like he's gotten it, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And now, and yeah, now he's gonna obviously something's gonna play out in season 2 with him. He's gonna be a very powerful figure in the Brotherhood of Steel, but it's just like nothing's ever through his own action, you know. He just happens to be there, you know. So I don't know. I'm not loving that. I hope in season 2 he kind of gets a little bit more fleshed out.
Yeah, I hope he gets a little bit, like you said, a little bit more agency in his own decisions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I actually like the Ghoul storyline a lot.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I did too. I loved
I
it.
think he was like, I think he was one of the best characters, obviously. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not too much to say about him. Like his character plot points are kind of flawless.
It's just so interesting. I didn't know. I guess again, I haven't played Fallout deep enough to like know these things that like some that there are people who have been alive since the bombs dropped.
oh,
Like
so yeah, so ghouls.
is that common? Are ghouls all like that or
Yes, so ghouls. Now I don't know if there's a specific serum that can turn you into a ghoul. It's always been like a chance type deal. Like
well,
if
it
you get
seems like that is true because remember Thaddeus, he drank that serum to get his foot fixed or whatever,
yeah, but
and then they were
in
like, "Oh, you're a ghoul now,"
yeah, but in the lore, right? Like that's what I'm saying. I don't know if the ghouls were experiment or FEB
Yeah,
experiment because the super mutants are, but I don't know if the ghouls were like a side product of that because it's always been established in lore that if you just get certain random mutations in genes and everything like that, you just turn into a ghoul. Like if you get exposed to enough radiation, right?
yeah,
That's been a thing because there's even a character in Fallout 3. If you decide to blow up Megaton in a bomb, you can tinker the bomb to disarm it or blow it up.
yeah.
And the character, she's a human. It's like a regular human. She's only like 20 something. She turns
Hmm.
into a ghoul once you blow up the bomb. And
Mm.
she's like one of the only sole survivors, but she gets exposed to enough radiation, and it's like it's a game of chance that she became a ghoul. So that's how, in my impression, in the lore, that's how ghouls were always. They were just like people of chance whose mutation just decided to make them turn to a
Okay.
ghoul or whatever. So yeah, ghouls
So
can live up to 300 to 400 years before they become feral, and then they just become feral at some point. Some it's a little bit less than that. It just depends on circumstance and everything like that. It's not a real reason your brain
they they
deteriorates.
they made it seem like they need that serum in order to not go
Yeah, I
feral.
that's never really been a thing in the games. That's a new thing for the show, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Because yeah, I think that is the one thing they're going to explore in season 2 is more of the ghouls past of the events. Because honestly, we mostly focus on the events leading up to the bombs dropping with season 1 with him. But it does feel like there's going to be like, how did he survive? And like
Yeah,
maybe some of his initial adventures in the early part of the wasteland right after the bombs drop, which I think would be very interesting to see actually. Like what did things look like early on in that first like 10, 15 years,
yeah. I really want to see that. I really want to see what the world was
um
like.
yeah, and I
Right?
think there's an opportunity with him to explore that for sure.
Yeah,
um so I kind of hope they do that with him too, but um other stuff in episode 2 they go to Philly. There's the kind of the gunfight there with the kind of the doctor guy or whatever, the scientist, with the fucking fusion cell that he has in his neck, that everybody's like trying to get. I thought it was interesting that our three characters converge this early in the story. I did not expect that in the show. It's funny that it happened like immediately, basically. So, what did you think of that whole sequence in Philly, though?
I actually liked it. It reminded me of like the video games.
Yeah,
That's the sequence where I was like, oh, this is supposed to be imitating the VAT system. Where like heads exploding off critical shots and everything of that nature. I thought it was
it's
like
targeting specific body parts. Yeah,
exactly,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I thought it was really cool to instead of just like trying to introduce that into the lore, into the TV show and not make it corny. They just like, well, we're just gonna do action sequences and we're just gonna use it as a cameo piece instead. And I actually like
yeah.
that a lot. That was a really cool choice.
I will say this fight had the one kind of plot hole in the show. That was one major one that I noticed. I guess is I don't think this is a huge deal, but in the end, the final episode when he's fighting the Brotherhood of Steel, he mentions that flaw, the defect in the armor. Um,
Oh, he didn't do it against
he didn't do it against Maximus,
yeah.
even knowing that, and I just thought that was a little like thinking back on it as like, yeah, that feels like a plot hole, because he was just shooting wildly at his chest, or whatever, and kind of going 1v1 against him, and he eventually came out on top. But it is kind of weird that like he has that knowledge and he didn't use it in that situation. So That feels like they wrote episode 2 and then they didn't really have it written out that he knew about that defect at that point in time. That just feels like maybe something they didn't go back and fix necessarily.
Well, it's interesting too. How much lore is in this goddamn show?
Yeah.
They mentioned Operation Anchorage or whatever.
Yeah. Well, he said he was a part of it.
Yeah, he was. He was a part of it.
Yeah, China took over Alaska, right?
Yeah, yep. So China did a surprise attack on Alaska, and then we had to annex Canada because they actually mentioned that as well. We had to annex Canada to get over to Alaska, and we did have power armor there, but then we got the new version of the power armor, and it was because of that power armor that we didn't win Operation Anchorage. The T-60s or whatever they call them. We got that T-60s once we got the T-60s, we were able to win or whatever. And the ones that we have, the ones that the Brotherhood of Steel are using are the more not defective models, but the more last gen models or whatever the case may be, because those are more in production. The T-60s just came out when Operation Anchorage happened, and were still being produced. So the ones that the Brotherhood still had, they were already in mass production and being used.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool that he mentioned that, and that's like actually in the lore of Operation Anchorage. It's so fucking cool that they did that shit. I was like,
yeah,
that's goddamn, man, this motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly, I think it's clear that he played the games. Like, he's definitely a fan of the franchise. For sure, which I think is very important when you're doing these kind of adaptations, right?
Yeah.
He really got the feel of it all.
Halo
in place. So, what did you think about the power armor though? Because I found out that this was totally practical for the most part.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. They built like a real power armor, like, and that's what they're using on the show.
That's fucking cool.
They said even the jetpack parts, like where they're flying, most of it is practical. Which I think is crazy. That's crazy. That seems crazy. So they built it so this thing can actually function.
That's fucking crazy. That's fucking dope. Holy shit.
Yeah,
no wonder why it looks so good. Damn, that's crazy. I thought that shit was CGI.
Yeah, I think later on when they have like 5 of them lined up, it probably is. Yeah. But I think the one that Titus that Titus had originally, and then Maximus takes for a large chunk of the show. I think that was the one that was the suit, the practical suit. So
yeah, that's really fucking cool, actually. Damn.
Yeah, because I think it looked great, and I love how clunky and awkward it was to use. Is that it's obviously super powerful, but it's like very unathletic. Like it's not agile at all.
Yeah.
In like a 1v1 fight, somebody who's like very quick on their feet could easily defeat somebody in a power armor,
Yeah.
Which we do see that a couple times actually. So which I thought was really interesting. So yeah, the portrayal of that was really cool. I forgot about the bear encounter with Titus too and Maximus.
That one okay, so the bear encounter to me looked pretty fucking weird. Especially like they were standing next to the bear. The CGI looked really bad for the bear, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That was the one moment where I was like, yikes. But everything else, like, I thought was really cool.
Well, what did you think about Titus being a fucking coward?
I thought it was a really cool.
I thought it was appropriate, but
yeah, I thought it was really cool.
I just love him in the power going fuck, running away from the bear.
It was so weird though that he was just like cussing Maximus out, and he's like the only person that can save you. I'm like, I wouldn't do that to the only person that can help you. Like, I understand that's your squire.
Also, when it's not true, like exactly. Literally, none of it's Maximus's fault. You're a piece of shit who ran away from the fucking bear instead of fighting, dude. Like, it's like, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I didn't fuck that character, dude. Yeah. Whatever. But I just thought that sequence was funny though. Just hearing the modified voice coming out of the suit, running away like fuck no. It was just really funny and comical. But so I think that was pretty good. Going further, episode 3. This is where they go to the fucking lake and what they called the Gulper is what it's called.
I've never seen that creature. Maybe that's like a Fallout 1 or 2 creature.
Fucking horrifying. You
Yeah.
remember the part where Thaddeus almost gets swallowed and there's fucking human fingers in its mouth as like the
Yeah.
teeth?
Yeah, that shit
Like,
was nasty.
what the fucking fuck, dude? Like, holy fucking shit. That was disgusting. So yeah, that was an interesting sequence. Obviously the ghoul, all his shit gets broken and you know, they end up going to that supermarket on episode 4 as a result. But you know, his interaction with Lucy is certainly interesting in this whole sequence. And then even going into episode 4 where they cut each other's fingers off. So what did you think of that whole period?
That episode was all right. I think that was one of the more not slow episodes, but like one of the more like, all right, can we just get on with the plot type episode for me. But then yeah, once they got to the supermarket and everything, everything started to make sense. So I don't know. I think that's where like Lucy kind of like I can't the morals excuse me, the morals in the vault don't add up to the morals out here in the wasteland. Like I can't change the wasteland the way I want to change it. So
right. Yeah, things got to change, right? Or she has to change the way she is a little bit.
yeah.
I think those realizations start to come through, especially when she bites his finger off. He's like, "There we go," you know. It's like he's kind of waiting for that moment. So, and then the Thaddeus and Maximus fighting the Gulper is just like it's such a derpy. They're so it's like some of the combat in this show is like really derpy and funny. Like
well, that's what I love about the show. I love how you have this depressing ass world. Like this world's depressing as fuck. And I think that's what I like about Fallout in general. Like the world is depressing. Who would want to play in a world like that? Like all day, you know what I'm saying? So you got to put put comedy in there to make it. You have to put the satire and the comedy in there to make it like lively. And I think the show does a good job at that. Like
or palatable, even. Like, because I will say if it's just dour all the time, like especially on a television show, dude, it's like you know it's like Breaking Bad, right? Like you can only handle so much of that show.
Oh, yeah, that's a good example.
Before you need a break, you know, it's like it's just so dark. So I appreciate the comedy here. I don't hate comedy in Fallout. Like I guess that's not. I want to be clear. That's not like why I don't love Bethesda's thing. It's just I don't think they get what Fallout's trying to get across ultimately. So
yeah, they don't get the satirical. It was very evident in Fallout 3. They did a good job. Fallout 4, it was very obvious they did not know what Fallout was, in my opinion. And then I don't know. People said they did a good job in Fallout 76. I haven't played it, so I mean I played it.
That game takes place like 25 years after the bombs drop.
Really?
Which is really interesting. Yeah, it takes place in 2101, I think.
Okay.
It's like the earliest game in the timeline, which is very intriguing. So.
Oh yeah, I do remember the lore. That one really didn't get hit because of all the mountains and everything like that. It just got like the after effects of the fallout from the bombs. So yeah.
And then episode 4 is where Lucy saves all the ghouls. In the supermarket, we have the crazy robot that tries to like cut her open and shit. Which I love that those robots they nailed that robot because those things are like that. I mean, in the games, so that was a really funny sequence. The ghouls though, kind of seeing a little bit more about them and seeing the one kind of go feral that she has to kill, the old lady or whatever. You know, obviously sad. And then this is where kind of obviously we've been seeing things in the vault that she left, Vault 33. But we're starting to see Norm kind of investigate a little bit more and see what's really going on behind the scenes. Because I think this is the episode where they go to Vault 32. Him and that I forget that dude's name, the gatekeeper dude. That helped get Lucy out originally. So what did you think about them continuing to keep the vault going? Because I loved that they didn't like never show the vault again after the first episode. Like I think that was a really smart choice to kind of show people what vault life is like still. You know, and kind of how people are. Obviously becomes very important later in the season to some of the reveals, but earlier on in the season it was not clear why we were still here, you know, seeing these events.
Wait, you said why we didn't leave the vault or why we did leave the vault? I'm sorry.
Well, I just like your overall thoughts on like how they handled continuing to show Vault 33 and kind of the aftermath of Lucy leaving and the Raider
Oh
attack
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything.
I think that's for me, that's pretty cool because I always wondered like what happened to Vault 101 after I left. Because we don't know. Like you never visit Vault 101 in Fallout 3 after you leave or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously in Fallout 1, you have to leave to go get the water chip, which another cameo they did or another Easter egg
Yep.
they did. I
Yep.
love that they did that.
That was awesome. Which they didn't resolve that actually.
Yeah, they didn't.
So
That's probably gonna be a plot point in Fallout or season 2 of
season
Fallout.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I do love that though. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I actually like to see the ramifications of what happened and what happened when a character leaves and all this stuff like that because we don't know we don't know the politics or how things are going to change and everything of that nature from one character leaving and everything of that nature. Obviously, we know probably in Fallout 1 we know, but
Mhm.
like Fallout 3 we don't know, and
Yeah. Yeah,
everything
and
of that
then
nature.
Norm, I mean, they go to Vault 32 and they see the basically the riot that happened where they just like killed the leadership and they ended up all killing each other.
Yep.
So he sees all that, and then I don't know if this is the episode where I don't think this is the episode yet where like they come back to Vault 32 and they're doing the repopulation thing, but that was kind of an interesting thread that they cleaned everything up and made it look brand new and everything, and all the bodies were gone and everything. My only question with that is like who did that? Physically. Because he definitely wasn't Betty doing it all. And there's nobody in Vault 31 to help. So who did that,
Yeah, exactly.
Um so I don't know. She probably has some close confidants or whatever in 33, but um so yeah, I liked the Norm part of the show. I think for some people it's probably might be one of the worst segments of the show because there's just not a lot of action in those sequences, but I think it's very important obviously to the season overall. So I kind of like Norm as a character too. We get to see his resolve a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah,
Because early on he's portrayed, he calls himself a coward, like he doesn't think he could last out above the surface, and he probably couldn't, but he's not a complete like, he isn't a complete coward. He kind of comes into his own later in the season. So and then episode 5, this is when Maximus reveals himself to Thaddeus, and Thaddeus takes the head and the fusion core and runs away and leaves Maximus in the power armor, and then Lucy shows up and saves him, or whatever, and they kind of start getting to know each other a little bit. So this was kind of more of a transitionary episode. I don't There wasn't a ton interesting in this one other than, they do get to Shady Sands, they see the hole in the ground, and then I think they end the episode falling into Vault 4.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I like the episode, or I like the ending of the episode. I just like the whole transition of how they got into that situation and everything like that. Because sometimes it's like that in the games, like where you just walk into something and
It turns into something completely different. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I told my she's like, so what kind of experiments they have or whatever. I was like, well, in Fallout 3, there's a whole vault where you encounter a guy named Gary, and then you find out there's another guy named Gary, and then you find out there's another guy named Gary, and they literally that whole vault's purpose was just cloning. It was cloning technology, and they just cloned one guy named Gary, and they
Yeah.
and it got
Yeah.
so bad where they didn't know who the real Gary was, and all the Garys started killing each other. Uh, and yeah, when you go into the vault, they're still fighting and killing each other, and they're screaming Gary while they're doing it, like Gary and stuff like that. So, uh,
Oh my god.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just really cool. So, it's actually really cool to see like that vault's experiment and everything like that.
Yep. And then episode 6, this is them in Vault 4. This is kind of the beginning of them figuring out, or at least Lucy figuring out that things aren't quite what they seem, and they see the experiments of she sees the experiment video with them birthing the abominations actually, which was okay. So you need to explain this one to me. Is this something from the game's lore too, or is this new to the show? That
I think
like
that's new to the show. I never heard of them people birthing the abominations like that.
Okay. Because yeah, that is a crazy one for sure. Like that's disgusting. That thing they fought in episode 3 and 4. in the lake is actually like came out of a human woman.
Yeah,
It's
so I mean,
fucking
it makes sense because like, well, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense because like that vault was probably just used for experimentation. I don't want people to get the impression though that every animal out in the wasteland is from that vault. Uh,
definitely right.
it's definitely just like random mutations going around,
Yeah.
and but this just so happened not to be a random mutation. It was a experiment.
Specifically designed
Yeah,
creature. Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that was definitely an interesting reveal, and this is where we start getting a lot more flashbacks to the ghouls past, where he starts spying on his wife and stuff, and like he goes to that rally or whatever with Moldaver back from before the bombs dropped or whatever,
yep,
which was definitely uh that's where things started getting very interesting, I think, where they're really starting to dive into the lore aspect of what happened before the bombs drop and what was going on with Vault-Tec and everything. For sure. And yeah, so I think that this is where the show starts really like getting strong. I think episodes 7 and 8 though are like super good.
yeah,
Episode 7 is kind of the resolution of the Vault 4 stuff. Lucy and Maximus get pushed out. They end up giving the fusion core that Maximus stole back to Vault 4, which was, that was kind of cool. But they have to abandon the power armor as a result. And then I think this is where Moldaver like actually convinces the ghoul to spy on his wife, and he starts doing that. And I think this is the episode where we get the conversation of them in the war room, basically talking about dropping the bombs,
yeah, yep.
and what their plans are with the vaults and everything. So this was a very important episode in that regard. I think this is when Norm finds out about the cryo sleep stuff too in Vault 31, right? There's a lot of important reveals in episode 7.
Yeah, that was a really great episode, and then obviously episode 8 was really great, but that one was like a crazy episode. Because yeah, like they reveal why, like you said, why they were doing what they were doing to build a perfect society and everything. We get to meet the cabal behind Vault-Tec. We actually put faces to Vault-Tec now.
Yeah,
And it being one of the ghouls' wives, or one of the ghoul's wife rather, was actually like a really cool revelation. I think that was
it's
like,
crazy that she was in on it.
yeah, the
Yeah,
entire time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and and he was still holding on to hope that she would maintain some kind of moral stance against it. And in her eyes, like this is going to happen regardless, right? So I like that. I like that juxtaposition between the both of them that was
Yeah.
happening.
No,
Um,
it is cool. She was being practical. Like Vault-Tec's going to do this whether I'm here or not. I
yeah,
should just lean into it and try to secure a place for us.
yeah, and he was
Um,
just more so. I And I thought it was really cool, like in the earlier episodes too, where he was the cowboy. He was about to kill somebody. He's like, "That's just not what I do," or whatever. Like, I don't kill people. Even though he was in the military, he obviously did kill people because he was a Marine in the Operation Anchorage. But he probably
yeah,
came back and was like, "I don't want to kill people anymore if I don't have to." And and then it's such a polar opposite of what he is now in a wasteland. And it's like, I think that's what he saw in Lucy. Like, he's like, "I used to be like you, but now." I used to be an adventurer like you, but then I took an arrow to the knee. But like, he's like, uh, he used to be
Uh,
like Lucy at one point, and then
yeah,
his whole world flipped upside down, probably twice. I mean, obviously, his wife lying to him was like a world flip, and then the bombs dropping, and then becoming a ghoul. On top of that, um, and on top of that, he knows it's implied that his wife and daughter may still be alive because they still may be in cryo sleep.
yeah,
So
right.
um,
Well, that's the interesting part is we I think that's where season 2 is going to explore things a little bit more with him, because like at the beginning, in the first scene of the show, when we see the bombs drop, he's with his daughter at some party, being
mm,
basically making some money. So clearly, I think at that point he had probably separated from his
yeah,
wife.
they already said like he was separated because she got the money in the divorce and stuff like that. That's why he was doing the party.
Right. So how did his daughter end up in cryo if she was with him when the bombs dropped? Like, there's
We're
definitely
probably
some
gonna,
things. There's
yeah,
definitely some things there that they probably need to explain.
Yeah, they probably, if it's anything like Fallout 4, they probably got to the vault right as it was about to close, and
Yeah.
she didn't give
Yeah.
him a spot, but she gave her daughter a spot.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think too. Because he says in the last episode, like, "Where's my family?" So meaning
Yeah.
that he thinks his daughter is still alive too.
Yeah, or she could be dead. Like that could be the case,
Right. We don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. So there's definitely, this was a very interesting episode. The Norm reveals with the cryo chambers, and what was his name? I think Hank was the robot. Was his name? The
Yeah, I
guy that
can't
was like
remember.
a fanboy for the Ghoul when he was an actor.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I thought it was funny though that
No, it
he
wasn't Hank. It was I fucking, oh my god, Bud. I think it was Bud.
Bud,
Yeah,
because he
it was
always said Buds, yeah.
What a stupid fucking name. So yeah, no, yeah, Bud, that's right. That's the brain in the jar on the the fucking Roomba, basically. That sequence was really funny where he pulls out the needle and he's like, stop, he's like, I'm gonna stop you, and it's like super slow. It was definitely a funny sequence for sure. But then he closes the door though on Norm, and that'll be an interesting place to pick up for season 2 for him. And then episode 8, we have the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. We can go to episode 8 because I was about to say something.
Where we have the assault on the NCR, kind of fortress with Moldaver and everything,
which really reminded me of New Vegas. By the way, that was like a real New Vegas moment in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because you do the assault on Hoover Dam, and then your situation is kind of resolved on Hoover Dam and everything like that. So I thought that was really cool that they kind of, in my opinion, that was a soft cameo to like New Vegas. Yeah, and actually Fallout 3, because you did the assault on the Capitol as well, to where the water chamber is at. To either you can put the water in and have it for everybody, or you can put a mutagen in the water and kill all the abominations in the wasteland. So I thought it was really cool.
Interesting. So episode 8, we have the assault. This is where Lucy learns about her dad being the one to drop the bomb on Shady Sands, which was certainly an interesting reveal that they still have access to nuclear weapons. In the what is modern era of Fallout, is certainly very interesting that there are still warheads out there. So, obviously the assault itself, the Ghoul's there. He fucks up an entire fucking Brotherhood of Steel battalion, basically, which was a really cool sequence. Maximus shows up and gets punched by Lucy's dad, who is in the power armor. He gets knocked out. Moldaver dies. But they turn all the lights on. That's right. The power turns on.
The cold fusion power.
Yeah. Yep. Cold fusion works,
which was actually hinted throughout the entire game. All the games actually. I think it's not necessarily said, but it said like some kind of technology was developed for infinite power, and Voltec did not want that shit to get out.
Of course. They reveal that in the show, right? Moldaver says her company was purchased before they could complete it, and they basically shut down all the research after they purchased them, because they didn't want that out there in people's hands. Which is obviously makes plenty of sense. Why would a company that's trying to make money and have total control, they don't want people to have access to things like that, right?
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. The only thing I question though is Moldaver's. Obviously, she was around before the bombs drop, and she's here 200 years later, and she's not a ghoul. So
cryo sleep.
I know, but there's nothing explicit about, like, I don't know. Is that just supposed to be an assumption that she was in cryo?
She was like a very important figure, like they saved a lot of people, or they took a lot of people within that
obviously
division.
She's incredibly smart, right?
Yeah, so they probably saved her for like the new world or whatever,
science, or her scientific knowledge and everything.
So it's also implied that she never got caught for her like antics before the bombs dropped, so I don't think anyone knew what she was up to. And then it's just been like they kind of figured it out after everyone woke up and everything like that. Because I think she was in Vault 32 or Vault 33 or something like that. I think she was one of the people in those vaults. Because she actually, because she she started dating not Hank, but Lucy's dad's wife. She started to date her.
Mm. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot
Yeah.
of it was implied that he was just like super angry about that shit as well. Um
Gotcha.
yeah, so cuz I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
her mom being that ghoul at the end, like that was kind of cool as well. Like
Yep. That was an interesting reveal, which is fucking sad.
yeah.
But then the ghoul showing up and running into Lucy's dad and being, I love his entry where he does the quote from the western that he did, and he's like, "You want another autograph?" Then he's such a cool character. Every time he walks into a room, he's just like fucking. He's got some one liner or something like. I don't know. He's definitely like probably my favorite character in the show. But yeah, the whole sequence with Hank's dad, or sorry, Lucy's dad running away, Hank, and heading to New Vegas. I mean, it seems like an interesting setup for season 2.
Yeah. I can't wait for it. I want to see what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the Brotherhood gonna do with the cold fusion cell? Like, obviously they don't want, like, is Maximus gonna try to convince them not to like hide it?
I think that's why they put him in the position that they put him in. There's going to be a lot of internal politics going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
For him to like, do you actually want to save people or do you just want to rule the world? Type
Right.
of thing. So
right, and maybe his experience with Lucy is going to change kind of the fabric of who he is.
Yeah.
And his instincts a little bit. Because obviously we know what she would do with it, like, but yeah, him, it's a little bit less clear. So that'll be an interesting plot thread. And then Lucy and the ghoul being together, hunting down her dad, is going to be that'll be a fun plot line going into New Vegas too. As well. I mean, yeah. So getting into the New Vegas part of this though, like, what do you think they're gonna do? Because they kind of have
Vegas
to
looks
pick
destroyed already.
right, which I think that was definitely a thing I saw online, is that it doesn't look like what the game looked like.
No, yeah,
right?
Vegas was lit up. It looked like Vegas. It looked like an actual casino type place.
Okay.
So it was lit up and everything. Yeah, this one looks like it's already destroyed. Everything already happened. Whatever the choice you decide to make or whatever. Obviously, I think it is implied that Rob Coe or Dr. House or Mr. House is still alive. You do have the option to actually like kill him, I believe. But I think the canon and then he's still alive somewhere. Like a consciousness of him is still alive because he's not a brain thing.
Right, he's a digital.
Yeah, he fully integrated himself into an AI. So
right. So it's conceivable that even if you killed him in the game, he might have another.
Yeah, he might have another copy of himself somewhere.
Another copy. Yeah, exactly. Right.
So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because New Vegas has a lot of lore tied back to Fallout 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Because all those games take place on the West Coast, which I think was a very interesting choice for the show. I thought they were going to go somewhere completely different because the West Coast has a lot of fucking lore. You can easily, like, anybody can easily fuck that up,
yeah, but it's all tied to games Bethesda didn't make, which is the really interesting part.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really interesting. I'm like, because I thought for the longest, I thought Todd Howard was like really offended by New Vegas.
And he's been pretty clear that he thinks he loves New Vegas. It's just not like, it's just hard for them to work with because all the choices you can make in that game, making another game after that, you kind of have to canonize something, and like he doesn't really want to do that, which is why they've avoided it.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because it's always been implied that he was kind of. I never really got the impression that he was jealous of it, but I can see why people would think that. Like, I can see why, depending on his personality. Like, his personality to me was always like, always just want to make shit that looks cool. But I could easily see somebody.
He definitely is that guy, dude.
Yeah.
He said something about power armor, that they changed power armor in Fallout 4, I think it was, because he's like, well, it would be cool, like we want to make it cooler, it's like, and it's like there's no basis in lore to do that or anything, it's like So he's definitely that guy for sure, but
Yeah.
that's not inherently bad.
No, yeah,
Like
that's what I'm saying. But
it can be okay.
I can understand why people may think like he may have an ego issue because he's always
Yeah.
at the forefront of everything, and he may be jealous that people think Bethesda's or Obsidian's version of Fallout is better than your version. He's like, oh, it's not. What are you talking about? You know,
Yeah.
But no, like his interviews and everything like that. I got the impression that he's just like, I just want to make shit that's cool. Like even for
Yeah.
Starfield, right? Like I just got the impression like he was just like, I really want to make a cool sci-fi, adventure game.
Right. Yeah, and I think sometimes that sentiment doesn't work.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah.
public doesn't think what you think is cool, then it's just gonna fall flat, which I think kind of happened with Starfield a little bit. But I think it's clear that he cares about Fallout a
Yeah.
lot, actually. Because basically what he said was he wasn't directly involved in every decision with the show, but he basically was like kind of give him a framework of what they could do and what was okay and what wasn't, and then they kind of pitched ideas of like, can we do this? And he was like, okay, sure, yeah, kind of thing. So because there are some major things in here, obviously, with the Vault Tech reveals of all that, and the cryo stuff, what happened to Shady Sands, like blowing up an actual location from the games, two specific games really that kind of impacted, and all that. So there's some major decisions here, but it's nice to see because he wasn't a showrunner, so it's like he does have it in him to like let someone else play in this playground,
Yeah.
which I think is good to see. And I think it's clear also because I think he said in interviews that like, I think they're clearly surprised by how popular the show has become, like how quickly it caught on and how well it's doing. I think they want to make a game sooner than they planned. That probably means it's not going to be Bethesda proper making it.
Hopefully it's
Because
Obsidian.
because we know the next game is Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
So and that's going to be years and years and years and years. And if Fallout is after that, Fallout 5 is then after that. I mean, we're talking a decade before that game comes out, probably. And I don't think they want to wait that long. So,
well, I mean, that's the thing. I think this show proves that if you put the right resources towards
anything,
like lore, towards lore, and like
right.
you
get the right people involved.
Yeah,
man.
You get the right people involved. You get the fans involved, and like I think shows and like this is what happened to a lot of like video game stuff in like the early 2000s, right? Like they didn't get the fans or like people who knew the IPs, and then we got this crazy type of shit that happened in the 2000s and stuff like that. Whereas, like, I think Marvel's a good example of that. Even though I love the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, right? I love that Spider-Man. I think this version, the Marvel's version of Spider-Man, is more better because obviously Kevin Feige loves Marvel stuff and everything like that, and he gets people involved that love Marvel and everything of that nature. So when you get people involved that loves these IPs, then you get better products because they know for the most part what that community wants out of the product. And I feel like excuse me, I feel like with Fallout that was the case as well. Like the showrunner loved Fallout. He loves Fallout. And he's like, I want to get people that don't necessarily love it, but like they're going to share my vision or whatever the case may be. The Witcher season 1 and 2, right? Well, maybe season 2 was all right. Yeah.
Just season 1. Just season 1.
Just season 1. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So The Witcher, right? We got Henry Cavill. Even though he wasn't the showrunner, he loves the Witcher series. He's like, I want to do that character justice. And now, in my eyes, I can't see anyone. Even though me and you were against it, we're like, him as Geralt. Come on, man. And now I'm like, I can't see anyone else but him as Geralt at this point.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think this just proves that you can put money towards a product, but you just have to like you said, allocate it correctly, and you will get your dividends back. Like all Fallout sales went up like 75,000%, 7,500. I'm sorry, percent.
Yeah.
over the last month or whatever. Like, it's fucking crazy.
I mean, it might chart this month, dude. Like, we're gonna see the Circana for April, and I'm gonna be very curious to see if one of the Fallout games.
I think 76 is gonna be up there for sure.
Well, that'll be up there in the probably in the DLC section for sure. But yeah, I just mean like does Fallout 4 like chart or something, or Fallout 3? That would be insane, you know.
Oh, but yeah, like I think that's really cool. Like, I don't know. Then you look at shows like Halo, and you're just like, what the fuck, you know? Like, you just they're like so polar. They should be. Halo should be bigger than Fallout. There's no reason why.
I totally agree.
Halo should be in the position that it's in right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, even before Fallout, we got The Last of Us, right? The Last of Us showed us if you get people who know the source material, or actually get the person who made the game himself to work on it and write it, then you'll get a serious product. People know who, like, The Last of Us is almost a household name now at this point, you know?
Yeah. Those games got a bump too when the show was running.
Exactly. But then you get The Witcher season 2 and 3 and 4. I think it's on 5 now, right? Or is it on 3?
No, 4. 4 is the one they're working on right now.
Yeah, then you get that shit. And it's like, what the fuck? You know, like, what is going on? So I don't know, man. I just think I think media in general is having a good reset right now. You can't just throw money at shit. You have to throw the right money, the right people at shit. And I think because of like all the budget constraints, shows and studios are starting to look at how can we make this product the best product that we have at this point.
Right. Yeah. And it's just nice to see video game stuff though coming out. I think the decision to make this its own thing within the existing Fallout lore and timeline, that it wasn't like a separate thing that's unrelated to the games, was a really smart decision. And I love that they made that choice, you know, because they easily could have tried to make their own thing and reestablish the Fallout lore, you know, within their own universe of a show. And I love the idea that this will stand up. It's part of the game lore going forward, you know, like these are events that happened in the next game. Like this happened, you know, this all happened. And I love that choice. I think that was such a smart thing. It kind of made it so that it was a thing the game fans of the games like almost had to watch, right? Like you if you want that full experience. But it's also a great show, and it's good for newcomers too. It's a great introduction to Fallout, I think. It has really obviously had a big impact on getting interested in the games. And frankly, I'm sitting here like, dude, this show got me like so jazzed about Fallout. Like I kind of want to go play all the games, like even the Bethesda ones that I'm like not I want to give them a chance, you know. Because I haven't played Fallout super deeply, and I've always found the universe to be extremely interesting though, you know, as like an alternate history kind of universe. And I love the concept of it. And kind of what obviously the things the show explored kind of opened that up even further. And it's just kind of making me like, man, I don't know, Fallout's like a really great thing, you know, and I think it's a great IP, it's a great idea, and there's obviously a lot of room to make great storylines in here, and there are great storylines in here. It kind of makes me excited about the future of the franchise now. I feel like it feels like this show has reinvigorated Fallout as an IP, you know, which is crazy. But
needed it. But you know what I like about shows like the first season of Witcher, The Last of Us, and Fallout. I think this is the biggest thing for us as gamers. I think we all win. People can finally understand why we divest a lot of our fucking time and energy into these worlds, these stories that are being told to us, why we are so invested in it, why we feel so passionate about it. Because a lot of these stories, either heartfelt stories or like these characters you fall in love with, like people can understand TV shows. They can understand like the Game of Thrones, you know, people can understand like Harry Potter and everything like that. But when it comes to certain, like when it comes to video games, people just seem like to not understand it. And like
Mhm.
now people can understand why we are so invested in these games, because now they want to be invested in, wow, like this is the universe you've been playing your game in the entire time.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, this is it. Like, I've been
right.
playing, The Last of Us, and this is why, I felt this way about Joel and Ellie and, everything like that. Or I've been playing The Witcher, and this is why I feel this way about Geralt and, that whole universe, or
Or
whatever the
just
case.
imagine you are Geralt, you are Lucy,
Exactly.
you're the one running around like making these choices, interacting with these characters, like, finding these reveals and stuff like that is like that's why we love it,
Yeah.
because we're the ones with the agency. It's like,
Yeah, and I think that's I think that's really cool that now, uh yeah, casual people can see that we're not just like nerds in the universe, or we're not nerding out for we're nerding out for a reason. I feel like they got that with Game of Thrones a little bit, even though it's just a book, not a video game.
yeah,
But these video game shows are showing people, like, like, because I was explaining to her, my wife and everything, and she's like, "Wow, okay, I see why you play this game a lot. Like, this is what it was in this universe. It's an alternate universe, alternate history, and everything like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just a really cool concept, and there are certain satirical themes that apply to real life and everything like that that I think are really cool." And I mean, like The Last of Us does it, and even if it doesn't have any kind of satirical themes that apply to real life, it's just a really cool world to be in. And I don't
yeah,
know. A lot of people are starting to see that now. Like, if they make a Mass Effect show and they do it right, I don't think they will, because EA is a bunch of fucking bitches.
yeah.
But if they were to do it right, that would be another world that I think people would love to be in
Oh
all
my
the time.
god, dude! Dude, I just imagine a Mass Effect show being like a Star Trek show, basically, with like an overarching. You have the overarching narrative of the Reapers, as a backdrop.
You know what I want the show to do? The First Contact War. That's what I really want
Well,
to
that would
do.
be great. That would be fucking great. But if you went for like Shepard and everything though, right?
Yeah.
Where it would be like basically like following the Enterprise, like, and you'd have your weekly, like, oh,
Yeah.
what situation is the Normandy going to resolve this week? It's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
oh, we're going to go to the Quarian fleet and learn about the Quarians, and they have some problem that we have to solve, it's like, or it's things like that. And you can get into the bigger narrative stuff, at some point in the show's run. But, I just like the idea of that, like, as a weekly show where it's like a Star Trek style kind of weekly thing. Um, like, I think that would work perfectly in Mass Effect, um, and I don't know, but yeah, the First Contact War would be fucking amazing though. That'd be an incredible story to tell, I think.
Yeah.
Because you could really start that first episode where like you don't see the Turians at all in the first episode, and it's
Hmm.
kind of just a lot of like prep and getting you in the universe, and like humanity is like, starting space travel and stuff like that, and we're like very like in a very basic place, and then you kind of end that first episode with the Turians like starting their attack, that would be fucking sick, so
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah, it'd be really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So I'm actually excited for for video games, but I think it's still going to be a hit or miss type deal for a while. I The only reason I say that is because The Witcher and Halo exist. You know, if they
Yeah,
had nailed those out the park, which I think they did for season one of The Witcher, but after that, like, dumbness took over. But for Halo,
god, what happened there, man?
I
Oh
just don't
god, that makes me
understand
so upset.
how you fuck that show up. Like, that game has the perfect lore where you don't even have to follow Master Chief. You can follow
No,
someone else.
how does a group of people get to the point where they decide that they think they can write somebody's story better than they did,
I don't know, man.
I don't understand where that mentality comes from. It's crazy, dude. Like, it's totally insane. And I'm just waiting for, because dude, they're doing their little PR campaign with Liam Hemsworth, and they're trying to glow him up as like this, fucking savior that's coming in and is like gonna make The Witcher amazing or something. And it's just dude, I am so curious because I haven't even watched season 3.
I haven't either. I
I don't
stopped watching
care.
it.
Like I don't care, right? But I might watch it to watch season 4 because I want to see what happens. Like, how do they do this? Does it come out and it's a joke? Like, is it going to be memed on? Is it going to be one of those shows? Like, because I don't know. Like they because
Well, my thing is they trying to paint the picture like Henry Cavill was the issue the entire time, and it's like it was the showrunner.
such a joke. That's such a joke, dude. Like it's such a joke. Like I don't know. I mean, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. But everything I've ever seen and heard about the dude is he's the nicest dude. He's just passionate about The Witcher. I'm sure he got into some heated arguments.
Yeah.
Like they probably got into some heated arguments, but it's like I don't think it's out of malice. It's probably because he cares, you know. And it's like he doesn't want to be a part of this thing that he feels like is ruining the, you know, the kind of the source material. And like I totally get that where he would be coming from there. So I don't know. It's like it's all speculation. There's no official things. There's been a lot of people coming out, like some people who say they know what happened and they're like, oh, Henry was a piece of shit or whatever. And it's like I just don't believe any of this stuff. Even on the other side of the spectrum, I don't necessarily believe there was anything toxic from the showrunner side either. Like because her name is Lauren Histrich and she seems like a nice enough person. Like she doesn't seem like the type of person who would like purposefully manipulate things to get Henry kicked off the show, you know. I don't really believe she did that either. It feels like they couldn't come to an agreement on how to move forward and they probably just parted ways as a result. Like that feels more realistic and there's probably not much drama there. That's probably more likely what happened, but obviously that's not an interesting headline for the tabloids. So you know, we gotta create this saucy storyline that, you know, Henry's a toxic male gamer. So, oh my god, it's so fucking stupid. But anyways, it all resulted in a show that's just not up to snuff, you know, in The Witcher. So, and it sucks, because it's a great IP.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, hopefully people will understand what makes good content and everything of that nature, and not just throw money at shit and, you know, don't get the right people behind it. You have to study, like, because I don't understand why certain people do it for certain movies and they don't do it for other things. Like if you talk to actors and directors and stuff like that, they're like, "Oh, well, I actually studied the source material. I studied this book and I read it from front to back 300 times. I really wanted to understand this character." But then you get other stuff where they're just like, "Yeah," like you get Resident Evil type shit where it's just like, "What the fuck is this? Like, this is not Resident Evil." And it's also like Resident Evil, I blame Capcom for that because they literally don't care who they give their IP, their TV rights to, in my opinion. Like, so it's like that's another factor of it too, right? It could be just Microsoft didn't care who got this shit, and it was just like, here, do it, get money from it.
They seem to be totally disconnected with Halo. Like I don't know,
Yeah,
because that felt I think there were rumors about that with Infinite, that they just didn't care about what happened with that game, which is why it turned out the way it did. And it's just like, how is this a thing with Halo? You know, I don't know. So cool. Well, any other closing thoughts on Fallout Season 1?
Oh no, that's it.
Cool. Yeah, great show. 8 episodes, definitely worth a watch on Amazon Prime. I know you all have it, so you know. You might as well watch it. And looking forward to season 2. Hopefully it's not a show like The Last of Us that takes 3 years between their seasons though.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so tired of TV shows doing this shit where it's like they're like 2 or 3 year gaps between each season now. It's just so fucking obnoxious. So I kind of hope we get something sooner than later with this show, but we'll see. We'll see on that front. So and then yeah, I mean future games, I don't know, dude. Like, do you want Obsidian to make another game? I'm sure you do, but
I do. I just want them. I do want them to make another Fallout game, but I think they're way past Fallout at this point. They have their own IPs they're working on, so I would actually like to see someone else try to tackle it. Maybe one of the I don't know. They have a couple of different studios that are good storytellers. So I would like to see that. Like, you know, maybe not Blizzard. Maybe they hire people from the writers of Blizzard to do some time Fallout show or game or something like that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
All right, fair enough. Alrighty, well, that's gonna be it, guys. I don't know. I think I might split this off from the main episode because we're getting close to 4 hours here.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I think I might just make this its own post ultimately, but yeah, cool, good discussion, and anybody who's still here listening to this, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.